In the year 2145, Earth was a busy place. Humans had made great strides in technology and exploration. They traveled to other planets, traded with alien civilizations, and built a powerful military. However, not all aliens were friendly. Tensions grew as some alien races, like the Zorthians, began to threaten human territories. Ethan Carter was a pilot in the Earth Defense Force. He was known for his quick thinking and bravery. He flew many missions, and his skills saved lives. Ethan loved flying more than anything else. The thrill of soaring through the stars filled him with joy. But he understood the dangers that lay ahead. The Zorthians were not just another group of aliens. They were a powerful race with advanced technology and a hunger for control. One day, the government called an emergency meeting at the Earth Defense Command. Ethan arrived at the command center where many high-ranking officials gathered. Room buzzed with urgent chatter. The commander, a stern woman named Clara, stood at the front. Her eyes scanned the crowd as she spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face a serious threat. The Zorthians are planning to invade our colonies. We need to act fast." Clara's voice was steady, but Ethan could see the worry etched on her face. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew the Zorthians would not stop until they claimed territory for themselves. He listened closely as Clara continued, outlining the Zorthian fleet's movements. They were gathering near the outer planets, preparing for an assault. Ethan raised his hand. "What do we know about their forces? Do we have any intel?" He wanted to understand the enemy better. Clara nodded. "We have a chance to gather more information. I'm assigning a reconnaissance mission to scout their base. We need someone experienced to lead it." Ethan's heart raced. This was his chance to make a difference. He stood up straight and said, "I want to lead the mission." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. Clara studied him for a moment before speaking again. "Very well, Ethan. You will lead a small team, but be careful. Zorthians will not take kindly to intruders." Ethan accepted the mission with determination. He gathered a team which included Lila Grant, a talented scientist. Lila had a reputation for her knowledge of alien biology and technology. She was smart and resourceful, making her a valuable asset for the mission. As they prepared to leave, Ethan and Lila discussed their strategy. "We need to find out as much as we can without being detected," Lila said, looking at a holographic map of the Zorthian base. "If we can gather their plans, we may have a chance to stop them." "I agree," Ethan replied. "Let's focus on their defenses and troop movements. We need to get in and out quickly." The day of the mission arrived. Ethan and Lila boarded a small stealth ship designed for reconnaissance. The ship was sleek and fast, equipped with advanced technology that could help them avoid detection. As they launched into space, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He was ready for the challenge but knew the risks involved. The journey to the Zorthian homeworld took several hours. As they flew through the stars, Ethan thought about the future. If they failed, Earth could face a war unlike anything seen before. He pushed those thoughts aside for now and focused on the mission ahead. When they arrived near the Zorthian planet, Ethan piloted the ship into a hidden orbit. From their vantage point, they could see the Zorthian base, a sprawling complex surrounded by tall walls and watchtowers. Ships moved in and out, and the air was filled with activity. "Look at that," Leela said, her eyes wide with curiosity. "They have a lot of ships. We need to be careful." Ethan nodded. "Let's scan for weak points in their defenses. We'll use the cloaking system to stay hidden." They spent the next few hours gathering data. Ethan piloted the ship, while Leela analyzed the information. They discovered that the Zorthians were planning a massive invasion of human colonies. Their fleet was larger than anyone had anticipated, and they were preparing to strike soon. "This is worse than we thought," Lila said, her voice tense. "If we don't warn Earth, they could be wiped out." Ethan felt a wave of urgency wash over him. "We have to get this information back. Let's head for the exit." As they prepared to leave, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. Ethan's heart sank. "They know we're here," he said, quickly adjusting the ship's controls. "Activate the cloaking system," Lila shouted, her voice rising in panic. Ethan pressed the button, and the ship became invisible to Zorthian sensors. He maneuvered, the ship carefully avoiding the watchful eyes of the guards below. But the Zorthians were quick. They launched several ships to search for intruders. "Ethan, they're coming," Lila warned, her eyes fixed on the radar. "I see them," he replied, gripping the controls tightly. He pushed the ship to its limits, darting through asteroids to evade the pursuing Zorthians. Each turn felt like a life-or-death decision. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they broke free from the Zorthian defenses. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "We did it," he said, relief flooding through him. Lila smiled, though her eyes still held concern. "Now we need to get back and warn Earth." They set a course for home, but Ethan knew they were not out of danger yet. The Zorthians would not give up easily. As they traveled back, he thought about the information they had gathered. It could change everything. When they arrived at Earth, Ethan and Lila rushed to the command center. They burst through the doors, breathless and filled with urgency. Clara turned to them, a look of concern on her face. "What happened? Did you get the intel?" "Yes," Ethan said, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. "But it's worse than we expected. The Zorthians are preparing for a full-scale invasion." Clara's eyes widened. "We need to act fast. Gather the council. We have to prepare for war." Ethan and Lila exchanged glances, knowing the battle ahead would demand everything they had. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders, and they were ready to fight. Ethan and Lila stood in the command center, surrounded by high-ranking officials. The atmosphere was tense. They had just returned from their dangerous mission, and now they had to share the news. Clara, the commander, looked at them expectantly. "Tell us everything," she said, her voice calm but firm. Ethan took a deep breath and began. "The Zorthians are planning a large-scale invasion. They have more ships than we thought, and they are preparing to attack several of our colonies at once." The room fell silent. Everyone exchanged worried glances. Lila stepped forward, holding a tablet displaying the data they had gathered. They gathered detailed information about their fleet. This shows their troop movements and the locations they plan to strike first. Clara studied the tablet closely. "This is crucial. We need to prepare our defenses immediately." She turned to the officials. "We must mobilize our forces and begin a counteroffensive." Ethan felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew the coming days would be critical for Earth. The officials began discussing strategies, and Ethan listened closely, eager to contribute. After the meeting, Clara called Ethan and Lila into her office. "You both did an excellent job. But we need more than just intelligence. We need a plan to strike back." Ethan nodded. "I believe we should send a team to sabotage their supply lines. If we can disrupt their resources, it will weaken their attack." "I agree," Lila added. "If we can cut off their supplies, it could buy us some time." Clara considered their suggestions. "I can send a small team for this mission. Ethan, you will lead it. Lila, I want you to prepare a biological weapon to target their defenses." Ethan felt a surge of excitement. This was another chance to make a difference. "I will gather my team right away," he said. As Ethan left the office, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He knew the risks involved, but he was determined to protect Earth. He found Lila in the lab. "Already working on the biological weapon? Do you think you can create something effective?" he asked. Lila looked up, her eyes bright with determination. "I can develop a pathogen that targets the Zorthians' unique biology. It will weaken their soldiers and disrupt their systems." Ethan admired her focus. "Let's make sure we have everything we need. We can't fail." They spent the next few days preparing. Ethan gathered a team of experienced soldiers, each with their own skills. He chose Sam, a sharpshooter, and Mia, an expert in explosives. Together, they felt ready for the mission ahead. On the day of the mission, Ethan briefed his team in a small meeting room. "Our goal is to infiltrate the Zorthian supply depot, gather intel, and sabotage their supplies. We need to move quickly and quietly. Any questions?" Sam raised his hand. "What if we run into Zorthian guards?" Ethan replied. "We will stick to the shadows. Our priority is to avoid confrontation. If we must engage, we do it quickly and efficiently. Mia nodded, her eyes focused. I can set explosives at key points to maximize damage. Good, Ethan said. Let's move out. They boarded their stealth ship and launched into space. The journey to the Zorthian supply depot was tense, but filled with purpose. As they neared the depot, Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. He piloted the ship carefully, using the cloaking device to remain hidden. Once they reached the landing zone, they exited the ship and moved quietly towards the depot. The area was heavily guarded, with Zorthian soldiers patrolling the perimeter. Ethan signaled for his team to stay low and watch for openings. Follow me, he whispered, leading them toward a side entrance. They slipped inside, and the darkness enveloped them. Inside the depot, the sounds of machinery and chatter filled the air. Ethan glanced around, scanning for the supplies they needed to destroy. He led the team deeper into the building, staying alert for any signs of danger. Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. Ethan quickly motioned for his team to hide behind a stack of crates. They held their breath as a group of Zorthian soldiers passed by, chatting in their strange language. Once they were gone, Ethan exhaled quietly, relieved. Let's move, he said, leading his team further into the depot. They found a room filled with supplies, food, weapons, and medical equipment. This was the heart of the Zorthian operation. Mia quickly set to work, planting explosives in strategic locations. We should blow this place up before they know we're here, she said urgently. Right, Ethan agreed. Let's gather some intel first. Lila needs details on their supply routes. They searched the room, finding documents and data pads. Sam grabbed a few, stuffing them into his bag. Then Ethan heard a noise outside. We need to hurry, he said. They might have found out we're here. Mia finished her work and stood up. Explosives are set. Let's get out of here. They made their way back. They heard alarms ringing through the depot. The Zorthians had discovered the breach. Ethan's heart raced as they ran towards the exit. Stick together, he shouted, urging his team forward. They burst through a door just as Zorthian soldiers entered from the other side. Gunfire erupted. Ethan ducked behind a crate, returning fire with his weapon. Sam took aim, picking off a soldier, while Mia threw a flashbang to disorient the enemies. Go, 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 Ethan yelled, pushing his team towards the exit. He sprinted down a corridor, the sounds of chaos behind them. Finally, they reached the ship. Ethan punched in the launch codes as Mia and Sam covered him. Just as the doors closed, Zorthian soldiers fired at them, but they were safe inside. Get us out of here, Ethan commanded, his heart pounding. He launched the ship into space, leaving the chaos behind. Once they were in the clear, Ethan let out a sigh of relief. We did it, he said, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Mia grinned. And we got some great intel, too. Lila greeted them when they returned to Earth. What happened? Did you succeed? Ethan nodded, handing her the data pads. We gathered important information and sabotaged their supply depot. But they know we were there. We need to prepare for their retaliation. Lila examined the data, her expression serious. This could give us the upper hand, but we need to act fast. The Zorthians won't sit back and let this go. Ethan felt the weight of the situation. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. The days ahead would be filled with challenges, and he knew they had to be ready for whatever came next. As he looked at his team, he felt a sense of pride. It faced danger and succeeded. Together, they would fight to protect Earth. The war was just beginning, and Ethan was ready to lead them into the fight. Ethan and his team gathered in the command center, filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety after their recent success. The data they had collected from the Zorthian supply depot was crucial. The atmosphere was tense as the officials reviewed the information. Clara. Gah. The commander stood at the front of the room, her expression serious. We have received word that the Zorthians are preparing to retaliate. They will not take this attack lightly. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He knew the Zorthians would be angry. They were a proud race, and their response would likely be swift and brutal. What are our options? He asked, wanting to understand their next steps. Clara pointed to a holographic map of the area near the colonies. We must fortify our defenses and prepare for an invasion. They are likely to strike one of our outer colonies first, possibly New Hope. If we can hold them there, we can buy time to prepare the rest of our forces. Leela, who stood beside Ethan, added, We should also consider using the biological weapon I developed. It could weaken their forces before they even reach. Us. Agreed, Clara replied. We will deploy the weapon close to the expected landing zones, but we need to be careful. We cannot risk harming any civilians. Ethan felt a sense of responsibility. I can lead a team to set the weapon in place, he offered. Strike from the shadows and ensure it's done right. Clara nodded. Very well, Ethan. Take Lila with you. We will provide support from here. The rest of the team will prepare the defenses at New Hope. Ethan and Lila quickly gathered there, geared and prepared for the mission. They boarded a stealth ship and set off toward New Hope, a small but vital colony on the edge of human territory. As they flew, Ethan reviewed the plan in his mind. Once we arrive, we will need to find a good spot to deploy the weapon, told Lila. We should aim for a location that will hit their forces as they land. Lila nodded, her focus intense. I have the coordinates for the most likely landing zones. If we can get close enough, we can set the weapon to release the pathogen right as they arrive. As they approached New Hope, Ethan saw the colony spread out below them. It was a peaceful place, filled with farms and small homes. The last thing he wanted was to see it destroyed. They landed the ship in a secluded area and began their approach. On foot, as they moved through the trees, they could hear the sounds of the colony, children playing, people talking, and the distant sound of machinery. It felt normal, but Ethan knew that danger was coming. Stay alert, Ethan reminded Lila. As they reached the edge of the colony, they looked over a small hill and saw Zorthian ships in the distance, preparing for their landing. They're closer than I thought, Lila whispered, her eyes wide. We need to hurry. Ethan nodded and led the way down the hill. They quickly found a suitable spot near the expected landing zone for the Zorthians. It was hidden from view, but close enough to ensure the weapon would be effective. Let's set it up, Ethan said, checking the area for any signs of Zorthian patrols. They worked quickly, positioning the weapon carefully and ensuring it was ready to deploy. As they finished, Ethan glanced back at the colony. We need to warn them. They have no idea what's coming, Bly agreed. I'll stay here and prepare the weapon. You go back and tell them to take cover. Ethan hesitated. Are you sure you can handle this alone? I'll be fine, she insisted. Just make sure they're ready. With a nod, Ethan took off toward the colony. He moved quickly, trying to avoid being seen. As he reached the main square, he saw people going about their daily lives, unaware of the danger approaching. Everyone listen. Ethan shouted, raising his voice to get their attention. Ow! We're under attack. The Zorthians are coming, and we need to evacuate immediately. People stopped and turned to him, confusion on their faces. A few children playing nearby looked frightened. Gather your families and head to the shelters, Ethan continued. We don't have much time. Panic spread through the crowd as they realized the seriousness of the situation. People began to move, rushing to gather their loved ones. Ethan felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew he had to keep everyone safe. As he helped direct people toward the shelters, he spotted Clara's communications officer approaching. Ethan, the Zorthians are almost here. We need to prepare the defenses now. Tell everyone to get to safety, Ethan shouted. We have to hold them off until Lila can deploy the weapon. The officer nodded and rushed off to relay the message. Ethan continued to help people reach safety, his heart racing as he heard the distant roar of Zorthian ships approaching. Finally, he saw Lila's signal from the hill. She was ready. It's now or never, he muttered to himself as he sprinted back toward her location. When he arrived, Lila was working on the weapons controls. I'm ready to deploy, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. We need to time this right. Let's wait until they're over the landing zone, Ethan replied, scanning the skies for the Zorthian ships. Don't want to waste this chance. As the ships descended, Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. Now, Lila, do it now. Lila activated the weapon, and a cloud of the biological agent spread into the air just as the Zorthian ships touched down. Ethan watched as the Zorthian soldiers began to disembark, confusion on their faces as they realized something was wrong. "What's happening?" one of the Zorthian leaders shouted, looking around in alarm. Ethan felt a sense of hope as he saw the Zorthians start to stagger. The pathogen was taking effect. "It's working," he exclaimed, turning to Lila. "We need to get back to the colony and help our people." They raced back toward the colony, knowing that the Zorthians would be disoriented but still dangerous. As they arrived, they saw Zorthian soldiers struggling to maintain their formation. Ethan quickly joined the defense team that had gathered. "They're weakened. We need to push them back while we have the advantage." Soldiers around him nodded, their faces set with determination. They prepared their weapons and moved forward, ready to engage the enemy. The battle began as Ethan and his team charged, taking advantage of the confusion among the Zorthians. They fought bravely, pushing the aliens back and protecting the colony. Ethan felt a surge of pride as he fought alongside his comrades. They were defending their home, and they were not going to give up without a fight. The combination of their training and Lila's weapon gave them the upper hand. As the battle raged on, Ethan saw Lila in the distance, still coordinating efforts to ensure the weapon's effects were maximized. He felt a rush of gratitude for her courage and intelligence. Hours passed, and the fighting began to die down. The Zorthians, weakened and disoriented, started to retreat. Ethan felt a sense of victory wash over him. "We did it," he shouted. Raising his weapon in triumph, cheers erupted from the defenders as they celebrated their hard-earned victory. But Ethan knew they had to remain cautious. The Zorthians would regroup, and the war was not over yet. As the sun began to set over New Hope, Ethan felt a mix of pride and concern. They had won this battle, but many more would come. The fight for Earth was just beginning, and he was ready to lead his team into whatever lay ahead. Ethan stood on the outskirts of New Hope, watching the last of the Zorthian ships retreat into the dark sky. The battle had been fierce, and although they had won, the cost weighed heavily on his mind. He turned to see Lila walking toward him, her face smeared with dirt but her eyes bright with determination. "You did great out there," she said, offering him a tired smile. Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of pride in their victory. "We couldn't have done it without your weapon. It made all the difference." As the defenders began to clean up the area, Ethan surveyed the damage. Some buildings had been destroyed, and a few people were injured. He felt a knot in his stomach. "We need to help those who were hurt," he said, looking around for the medics. Lila agreed. "I'll check on the lab and see if we have any medical supplies left." She walked away, and Ethan turned back to the others. He joined the medics, helping to carry the injured to the makeshift medical tents set up in the town square. The atmosphere was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. People hugged each other, thankful to be safe, but mourning those who had been lost in the attack. As the night wore on, Clara arrived to assess the situation. She approached Ethan, her face serious. "We need to talk about what comes next. Zorthians will regroup, and we can't let our guard down." Ethan nodded. "I agree. They will come back for revenge. We need to strengthen our defenses and prepare for another attack." Clara glanced at the people around them, some still in shock. "We cannot let fear take over. We must show them that we are strong and united." "What?" Ethan felt a spark of determination. "What do you suggest we do?" "We will gather all available forces and fortify New Hope. We also need to send scouts to monitor Zorthian movements. They may already be planning their next move." Ethan thought for a moment. "I can lead. A team of scouts? We can gather intel and find out where they are regrouping." "Good idea," Clara replied. "You and Lila should go. Get as close as you can without getting caught." "We need to know their plans," Ethan agreed. And after a brief meeting, he found Lila in the medical tent. She was helping to tend to the injured, her hands moving quickly and efficiently. "Lila, we need to scout the Zorthians," he said. "Are you ready to go again?" She looked up, her expression serious. "Yes, but I want to make sure the lab is secure before we leave. I don't want to lose our research." "Of course. Let's make sure everything is safe first, Ethan replied. After they secured the lab and the area around it, they prepared to leave. Lila gathered some equipment, including a small scanner, to detect Zorthian technology. As they boarded their stealth ship, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The journey to the Zorthian territory was tense. They flew quietly, using the cloaking device to avoid detection. The ship moved smoothly through the stars, and Ethan focused on the mission ahead. Once we reach the Zorthian base, we need to stay hidden, he reminded Lila. We can't let them know we're there. They arrived at the edge of the Zorthian territory and found a good hiding spot. From their vantage point, they could see the Zorthian base, a massive structure filled with activity. Ships moved in and out, and soldiers patrolled the area. Look at all of them, Lila said, her eyes wide. They seem to be regrouping quickly. Ethan nodded. We need to gather as much information as possible. Let's move in closer. They exited the ship and crept toward the base. The sounds of Zorthian voices filled the air, and Ethan felt his heart race. They moved silently, sticking to the shadows as they approached the perimeter. They noticed a group of Zorthian soldiers gathered around a table, discussing plans. Ethan signaled for Lila to stay low as they listened in. We must strike back. At the humans, one of the soldiers said, his voice deep and commanding. They humiliated us at New Hope. We cannot allow this to go unpunished. Another soldier nodded. Need to gather more forces. We'll launch a surprise attack. At dawn, Ethan's heart sank. We have to warn everyone, he whispered to Lila. Let's get the details first, she replied. We need to know exactly what they are planning. They continued to listen, taking careful notes on the Zorthian strategy, learned about their troop movements and the locations they planned to attack. With this information, Ethan felt a surge of hope. After gathering enough intel, they decided to retreat. They slipped away from the base, moving quickly and quietly. Just as they reached their ship, they heard an alarm blaring behind them. They must have noticed something, Ethan exclaimed, rushing into the ship. Lila activated the controls, and they took off just as Zorthian ships began to rise into the sky. Ethan piloted the ship away from the base, his heart pounding in his chest. Did we get everything? Lila asked, her eyes wide with concern. Yes, we have their plans, Ethan replied, focusing on flying. But we need to get to safety first. Once they were far enough away, Lila began to analyze the data they had collected. This is great, we can use this to prepare our defenses. Ethan felt a sense of relief wash over him. Let's get back to New Hope and warn Clara. They flew back quickly, and when they arrived, they rushed to the command center. Clara was waiting for them, her expression filled with concern. What did you find? She asked. Ethan handed her the notes. The Zorthians are planning a surprise. Attack at dawn. We need to prepare our defenses immediately. Clara's eyes narrowed as she scanned the information. We must strengthen our positions and alert everyone. This is our chance to catch them off guard. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. We can set up traps and reinforce key locations. If we can hold them off, we can turn this around. Clara nodded, her expression determined. Let's get to work. Time is not on our side. As the sun began to set, the team worked tirelessly to fortify New Hope. They set up barricades and placed traps around the perimeter. Ethan rallied the defenders, ensuring everyone knew their roles. Stay alert and be ready for anything, he told them. We've faced them before, and we can do it again. The night passed slowly, filled with tension and anticipation. As dawn approached, Ethan felt a mix of fear and determination. They had prepared as best as they could, but the upcoming battle would be fierce. When the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Ethan stood at the front lines with Lila beside him. The atmosphere was charged with energy as they awaited the Zorthians. Suddenly, the sound of engines filled the air. Ships appeared on the horizon, flying low and fast. Ethan's heart raced as he watched them approach. Here they come, he shouted, readying his weapon. As the Zorthians landed, chaos erupted. Soldiers poured from the ships, and the battle began. Ethan fought alongside his comrades, feeling the adrenaline of the fight. Push them back, shouted, rallying. The defenders, The Zorthians came at them in waves, but they were not prepared for the trap set around the colony. Explosions erupted, taking out several Zorthian soldiers before they even reached the defenses. Ethan felt a surge of hope as they held their ground. "We can do this," he yelled, urging his team forward. With every move, they fought bravely, defending their home and their people. The battle raged on, but Ethan knew they were fighting for something greater than themselves. They were fighting for their future. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the tide began to turn. The Zorthians, caught off guard and weakened, started to falter. Ethan felt a rush of determination. They would not let their home fall. Together, they would stand strong against the enemy, with renewed strength. They pushed forward, determined to win this battle and secure their place in the galaxy. Ethan stood at the front lines, sweat dripping down his face as he fought alongside his fellow defenders of New Hope. The battle had raged for hours, and the Zorthians were relentless, but they were also losing ground. Ethan could see it in their eyes. They were not prepared for the fierce resistance they faced. "Stay strong," Raisin to his comrades, raising his weapon. "We can win this." The defenders cheered, their spirits lifted by his words. They pushed forward, taking advantage of the chaos among the Zorthian ranks. Explosions erupted around them, sending debris flying into the air. Ethan felt the ground shake beneath his feet as they fought back against the invading forces. Suddenly, a group of Zorthian soldiers broke through the defenses, charging toward Ethan and his team. He quickly took aim and fired, striking one of the soldiers down. Mia, who was beside him, followed suit, her shots precise and deadly. "Keep moving," Ethan yelled, leading the charge against the Zorthians. He could see the fear in their eyes. As they faced the determined humans, they were not going to back down easily. As the battle continued, Ethan spotted Leela near the command center, coordinating the defenders and ensuring everyone was in position. She was focused and determined, her presence a reminder of what they were fighting for. Ethan felt a surge of pride for her bravery. "Lila," he called out, trying to reach her through the noise. "We need more support on the east flank." She nodded, quickly relaying the message to other soldiers. "Get ready," she shouted, rallying a group to bolster the defenses. The clash between the two sides was fierce. Zorthian ships continued to drop soldiers, and the air was filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. Ethan fought hard, determined to protect his home. Each time he took down a Zorthian soldier, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. But the Zorthians were adapting. They began to use their advanced technology, deploying drones that soared above the battlefield, firing at the defenders. Ethan ducked behind a barricade, watching as one of the drones targeted his position. "Take cover," he yelled, pushing Mia down just as the drone fired. The blast hit the barricade, sending shrapnel flying. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his arm but ignored it. There was no time to think about injuries now. "Are you okay?" Mia asked, concern etched on her face. "I'm fine. We need to keep fighting," he replied, gritting his teeth against the pain. He could feel adrenaline coursing through his body, pushing him to keep going. As they fought, Ethan realized the tide of the battle was beginning to turn in their favor. The Zorthians, despite their numbers and advanced technology, were struggling against the fierce determination of the humans. The traps they had set earlier were still causing chaos among the Zorthian ranks, disabling their vehicles and taking out their soldiers. "Look," Mia pointed. "They're starting to retreat." Ethan's heart raced. "We can't let them regroup. We need to push them back." He rallied the defenders, urging them to charge forward. "Now is our chance. Let's finish this." With a roar, the defenders surged forward, pressing the attack against the retreating Zorthians. The enemy soldiers, realizing they were losing, began to panic. Ethan could see them falling back, their formations breaking apart as they scrambled to escape. "Don't let up," he shouted, his voice rising above the din of battle. "We can win this." The defenders pressed on, fighting with everything they had. Ethan felt a fire inside him, a determination to protect his home and his people. They had come together as a community, and now they were showing their strength, just as they seemed to gain the upper hand. A Zorthian commander appeared, rallying the remaining troops. He was larger than the others, his armor gleaming in the sunlight. Go! His voice boomed as he shouted orders, trying to regain control. Fall back, the commander yelled. Regroup and prepare for a counterattack. Ethan felt a surge of anger. At the sight of the commander, we can't let him rally them, he shouted to Mia. We need to take him out. Mia nodded, determination in her eyes. Let's go. They charged toward the Zorthian commander, dodging gunfire as they moved. Ethan's heart raced as they closed the distance. The commander was focused on directing his troops, unaware of the humans approaching. Now, Ethan yelled, firing at the commander. The shot struck true, but the commander was quick to react, ducking and returning fire. Ethan and Mia took cover. Behind a nearby wall, as the commander's soldiers began to realize what was happening, we need to flank him, Ethan shouted, motioning for Mia to follow him. They moved around, using the cover of the barricades to get closer. As they approached, Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. They were almost there, the commander spotted them just as they were about to strike. Foolish humans, he shouted, raising his weapon. You will regret this. Ethan fired again, hitting the commander in the shoulder. The Zorthian staggered but did not fall. He raised his weapon ready to fire back, but Mia was quicker. She took a precise shot, hitting the commander in the chest. The Zorthian commander fell to the ground, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The remaining Zorthian soldiers paused, unsure of what to do. Their leader was down, and panic spread through their ranks. Now's our chance. Ethan shouted to the defenders, push forward, we can end this. With renewed strength, the defenders charged forward, taking advantage of the confusion among the Zorthians. The enemy soldiers, realizing their commander was gone, began to flee. The humans pressed the attack, determined to drive them back for good. As the last of the Zorthians retreated, cheers erupted from the defenders. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Ethan looked around at his friends and fellow soldiers, their faces filled with relief and triumph. We did it, Mia exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of pride for everyone who fought. But he also knew that they could not let their guard down. The Zorthians would regroup, and they had to be ready. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over New Hope, Ethan and the defenders started to gather. Clara approached, her expression a mix of pride and determination. You all fought bravely. Today we showed the Zorthians that we will not be defeated. Ethan nodded, feeling a strong bond with his team. But we need to prepare for what comes next. They will come back, and we must be ready, Clara agreed. We will strengthen our defenses and gather more allies. Together, we will protect our homes and our way of life. As the defenders celebrated their victory, Ethan knew that they would face many challenges ahead. But he also felt a renewed sense of hope. They were united and together. They could overcome anything. The fight for their future had just begun, and Ethan was ready to lead them into whatever lay ahead. With determination in his heart, he looked toward the horizon, ready to face the challenges that awaited them.